title today is Gaming, Gambling, and GAME-Bling, what you need to know related to prevention, education, treatment, and recovery. So we have some short little bios here. Kelly, do you want to?
Yep. Good morning. So you guys have this info. I've been in the field for quite a few years. I try not to count anymore because it's rather depressing. But as far as the gambling field, I have only been in the gambling field the 3 years I've been at ZEF. And it has been a fascinating process to learn about an addiction that I really knew nothing about. I do have my LCDC-3, so I have been in the chemical dependency field for many years, but the things I learned with gambling just kind of blew me away. So we will be sharing a lot of information with you guys with that. So I am the Prevention Services Coordinator here at the ZEF Center. You can see what I've done, what I'm planning to do, and the three of us kind of decided to move quickly through the bios because we want to kind of get into the real meat and potatoes of this. So go ahead with Megan.
Nice.
Good morning. Thank you all for sharing some time with us today out of what I'm sure are very busy schedules for everybody. I know what you're thinking. Yes, my dogs are in the wedding and they are walking down the aisle. So those are my two dogs, Lily and Luna. I have been in the field for 3 years, and of those 3 years, they've all been as a gambling treatment counselor. I just actually had my 3-year anniversary at ZEF on the 10th. And so Steve Capella is present. He's the big guy that took a chance on me and invested in me, and I'm just thankful to be here and work for ZEF and do the work that I do. So all my training is specifically with clients who are in recovery from a gambling disorder. So I hope to add a little bit of a clinical aspect to the training today for you guys.
And last for myself, I'm Jeanine Lindquist. I think I'm coming up on 2 years with ZEF. I started off in education, so I taught for 7 years, teaching math and science before moving into prevention. And I did prevention services for probably the last 15 years before joining the prevention team here at ZEF. So within the last year and a half, I was asked by Steve to try to create some short videos. And you guys have probably seen some of those mental health moment videos that I've created and kind of worked on. So that's been fun and exciting and something new to learn and grow from. So. All right, so we want to start with a little activity. We want you to finish these sentences. So money is, and you can just unmute yourself and shout out. You can put it in the chat if that is easier. And actually, I'll go kind of through, I'll put all 3 out there for us. And then if you have one that jumps out, you can answer 1 versus all 3. So money is, money makes me feel. And if my money could talk, it would say. What do we think?
Go ahead, Pam.
Okay, money is fabulous. It makes me feel secure. And if my money could talk, let's say, let's get some more.
Great.
Yeah.
Good answers. Thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else?
I think I would say money is necessary. Money makes me feel secure. And if my money could talk, it would say, stop spending it on the wedding.
So from LJ in the chat, she said, if my money could talk, it would say she spends me sparingly. And from
Ashante.
Thank you, Ashante. If my money could talk, it would tell me to stop buying shoes. I think some of us can relate to that one. Good answers. Anyone else?
Money is power.
Ah.
Money makes me feel comfortable. If my money could talk, it would say, I love you.
That's great.
A couple more in the chat. Virginia said, my money would say, stop door dashing. Kristen said, if my money could talk, it would ask me why I give it all to Jeff Bezos. Do you have an answer for that, Kristen? Would you be able to answer that question if your money could talk? No.
No, that might be between me and my therapist anyway.
Appreciate the honesty.
Michelle said, money is necessary. Money makes me feel secure. And if my money could talk, it would say, take me to Hawaii.
There you go.
Anyone else before we move on? All right. So how would a gambler in recovery answer these questions? So money is the root of all evil, a good servant, or cruel master. Money makes me feel great, excited, safe, secure, and accomplished. If my money could talk, it would say, what are you doing? Why did you waste all of me at the casino? Or hurry up and spend me.
And these are actual responses that we received when Megan did this in her gambling group. So these are direct quotes from our clients. So just an interesting way to see what might be different with somebody who's struggling with a gambling disorder versus kind of the rest of us.
And so, so can you go back to that other slide? So a gambler in recovery, these are not right or wrong, like which ones we should guess. They've actually said them all. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. Correct. So I did a gambling group and I asked them these questions, and these are some of the responses I got.
Wow, a cruel master. Okay. All right. Thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Kind of gives you a different perspective on where somebody else might be coming from with that. Okay, so the history of gambling. So up until 2010, legal gambling options in Ohio were pretty limited. Horse races, lottery games, and bingo. That's kind of what we were looking at prior to that. Most of us, when we think about gambling, we think of casinos. And we're going to talk in a little bit about how it's not just casinos. There's so much more. When we talk about gambling, people also associate it with the lottery. So we're looking at the Mega Millions, Powerball, all of those instant scratch offs, all of those types of things. That is predominantly what people think when they think about that. They began construction of kind of Vegas style casinos, is what they're called. That was authorized in 2009. What we were looking at is in Ohio, it kind of, I don't know what the word is, it just kind of bloomed. But we were looking at in Ohio when our brick and mortar is what the term I'm looking for. They started brick and mortar casinos in Ohio. So they were looking at casinos and racinos. Racinos, most people don't realize what that is, but that is when there is some type of racing associated with that. I'm going to grab my notes here because I want to make sure that I get all of these correct. So the casinos that began in Ohio, Columbus, Toledo, many of us are familiar with Hollywood Casino there in Toledo. Cincinnati, Cleveland, those are all the casinos. The racinos also in Cincinnati, Columbus, Northfield, Dayton, Youngstown, Cleveland, and Lebanon, which is Miami Valley Gaming. So when we look at what happened in that short amount of time, a lot of information that we're still gathering from that history of when our casinos became present. Keno was established in 2008. Video lottery terminals, a lot of those are in your racinos. I kind of struggled a little bit with how much information to give, because I've been to several trainings and they focus a lot about the history of gambling. And for the sake of this training, I just wanted to give kind of a broad overview. There's a lot more information. And again, this is where we can act as a resource for you guys. I have a lot of this in a document. So if somebody really is interested in further history of this, looking at when they open, what months, and different things like that, please let me know, because I have that. But I kind of want to move forward with the next slide with this, unless people have questions about this. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, so what is addiction? I could spend another 2-hour training on that question alone, but for today's purposes, we have one slide on it. And so I'd like you to take the viewpoint, the perspective, try the glasses on today, as addiction comes from the Latin term for enslaved or devoted. And I think that's pretty powerful when you think about what you know about addiction today, the devotion or enslavement to the drug, the drink, the donut, the scratch off ticket, whatever it is. Just as lung cancer debilitates the lungs, addiction hijacks your brain. Another way to look at things. Dopamine helps control the brain's reward and pleasure centers. So therefore, surges of dopamine reinforce that behavior, leading people to want to continue whatever that behavior was time and time again, even when you're not getting the same return on that. You're not getting the same type of high. You're not getting what you want. The brain says, well, let's keep trying to chase that original high, to chase that original feeling and see if we can get back there. So for a gambler, it's usually chasing that first big win. If I hit the jackpot once, I can hit it again. I just have to put my time and energy into this process to get there. That's the belief. So in nature, rewards come with time and effort. But in addiction, that we have a shortcut. We can flood the brain with dopamine quickly and reliably. We can interfere with nature's reward center of working for a reward, working for a promotion, seeing your friend that you haven't seen in a long time, not getting charged the extra guacamole on your Chipotle, right? Those are those dopamine surges that come in nature with time and effort. But with addiction, we just take a shortcut and we say, I'm going to put things into my own hands. I'm going to do it how I want to do it, whether that's by picking up the drink or by going to the casino or whatever your habit is. You're interfering with the brain's natural reward system.
Sorry, didn't remember that I was muted. So real quick, what is gambling? So gambling is risking something of value on an event that is determined mostly by chance for a possible win or gain. So I'll read that one more time so that really kind of sinks in. So gambling is risking something of value on an event that is determined mostly by chance for a possible win or gain. So now when we think about what are things of value, so we have to kind of expand our thinking a little bit, that it's more than just money. It can be jewelry, cell phones, cars, clothing, anything that an individual would value. So when we risk something that we value for the chance of a possible win or gain. Did I skip one? No, I did not. Okay.
No, sorry, I was muted too. So I was just looking in the chat. So online dating could be a form of gambling if taken to extreme. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's where we need to look at, like Jeanine said, expand. Think about things other than just money. You know, for some people, something that may be of value to someone else may not be of value to another person. But the point is, when you are looking at risking that, that's when it becomes an issue. We're going to talk a little bit about loot boxes, which are things within gaming that might or might not have something of value. So the perception is somebody is thinking it's something of value, when in the reality it may not. Does that make sense, Jenny? Oh, she's distracted.
I'm sorry, I was
All
just getting asked a question, but yes, my idea based on the previous slide, I was starting to think about even lots of things that we might consider coping skills or healthy activities if done to the exclusion of other basic things, like when the risk benefit begins to become skewed.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Then actually lots of things could fall into that domain.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Jeanine.
Sorry, I was even thinking as we're moving into the high risk, when we think about money, like my first thing that came to mind is money is a tool, you know, thinking about how money should kind of work for us to kind of help us along in life. And, you know, when we look at things like this, I feel like it, you know, when it becomes out of balance like that, when money no longer kind of works for us, we kind of work for it, so to speak, and it gets that off balance. I think that can even like move us into that high risk thinking and habits here.
Yeah, good point. And it's interesting when we look at high risk, I think of at risk also. So I was listening to a gambling training, and one of the things that the trainer said is, who is at risk? And his first thing was everyone is at risk. So, you know, again, we go back to that perception. What is something of value? So if you are willing to gamble something of value, then you fall into that at-risk category. It's interesting, Jeanine and I, as prevention people, we were asked to do what were called environmental scans. So in the field of prevention, one of the things that we do is we go out and we scan different situations. So it might be we are scanning for tobacco products. So we go into a carryout, we take a look at you know, how the marketing is, how their product placement is, do the cashier's card for tobacco products, all kinds of different things. So we were asked to do environmental scans on 3 casinos, the Toledo one and 2 Cincinnati ones. And it was a humbling and eye-opening experience for both of us, because we do not gamble. We don't spend a lot of time in the casino, but I all of a sudden became an at-risk, high-risk person for a gambling disorder. And I'm not in recovery myself, but it was shocking to me, the things that were going through my mind and all of the everything going on, not just at the casino, because I am not all about loud noises and dark environments. That's not me. I don't like that. But Jeanine and I both were a little blown away when we realized how easy it was to get sucked into this. Jeanine was looking at the cool machine that has the little bubbles and it's very relaxing and it's a fish thing. I was drawn to the dog one. I was drawn to the one that was huge. And the more times I pressed the button, you know, the more times it said, you won, you won. Well, it was exciting. You know, it was something that I had never experienced before. And anybody who is not familiar with going into a casino, the first one we went into, Hollywood Casino, we went to the cashier's desk and we said, we've never done this before. How do we do this? You know, what does this look like? So the first thing they said is, if you want to give us your email, we'll give you a membership card and you get $20 on that membership card. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean $20? Like, you're just giving me $20 if I give you my email address? And she's like, yeah. And then if you look over there to that kiosk, you can go over there and scan your card and you could get a chance to win up to an additional $500 on your card. And I'm like, shoot, yeah, let's do this. How do we do this? So that was exciting. I just got $20. So when I went to the kiosk, I got another $5 added. So I'm thinking, wow, this is really kind of exciting. So let's go check this stuff out. Not realizing 4.5 hours later, when we are still doing our scan, but realizing, oh my gosh, this is something that I just got sucked into. Unlike substances, I've never been a drinker, never did drugs. I just never chose that lifestyle. It was easy for me to avoid that. It was not easy for me to be in a casino and see me winning some of these things. And Jeanine is smiling because she was there when this big, huge machine that I chose to play at, it kept saying, you won. And I could, reach up and grab dollar bills, and that was a cha-ching thing. And all of this stuff I knew about addiction was happening in my brain. And it just was such a difficult experience for me to come to terms with. When we went to the Cincinnati casinos, I took my husband, who is in recovery from substance use disorder, not gambling, but he went in with $20 to spend, knowing that was it. He was going to spend $20, and whatever happened before or after that was fine. And he kind of looked at me afterwards and he's like, are you okay? And I said, I'm really not. I don't know what's going on with me. And we had a huge discussion about this high risk, this at risk, how easy it is for someone in prevention as a counselor to get sucked into that. What if I am a person who's struggling with depression or anxiety, or I don't know, maybe I'm a student and I want to pay off a student loan, and I know my roommate just went to the casino and won $3,000. You know what? Let's do it. Let's try that. That's not even my situation, and I got sucked in. So we really want to be careful. And part of the thing we talk about is stigma associated with problem gamblers. There's a lot of stigma associated with that. So we really want to be very honest and very open and realize that it could be any one of us sitting in these rooms. It's not just somebody who maybe is escaping or wants to pay off a debt or wants to pay off a loan. It could truly be any one of us. Jeanine, I don't know if you want to share anything about your experience at the casinos.
Yeah, it was funny because again, for the one that was local here, I brought my husband along, and he's a gamer himself. So Kelly was not sure how to play the game, and I was trying to help her see that how you had to just know how much you were betting. But then when she started winning, she was like, what do I do? So Brad was showing her like how to do it, and she was getting all excited. And we were just having the discussion that I think we were having fun because of our company. We enjoyed being with each other as friends and, having a good time. But, a week later, it was really rainy out, and Brad said, do you want to go back to the casino? That was kind of fun. Do you want to go back and just play the penny slots like we did before? And I kind of had to do a little self-check, because while we could have, and, probably done no harm, truly, like Kelly said, it was kind of interesting that we both kind of went in there going, okay, we'll do this. We're not going to really like it, but we'll do it. But we did actually have fun and enjoy ourselves. And, I guess I kind of self-checked myself in the sense that because we were observing other people there and kind of seeing how sad a lot of them were, they didn't look very happy. They were like going through the motions. For me, it was kind of like not wanting to go to a bar personally for myself, because I come from a family of alcoholics. And so for me, when I go to a bar-like setting, I look around and I see people, and it hurts me because I know they're potentially hurting themselves and hurting people around them. So, I had to kind of do a self-check and say, no, I don't really want to go back, even though I could have fun and probably be okay. I don't really want to be in that environment where I know other people are hurting themselves.
Yeah, and I think it's that perspective. When we went in, we know a little bit about problem gambling and our clients. So we went in with that perspective, with that mindset. And truly, when you did look around, I found it extremely depressing. Yeah. People were not having fun. They were not laughing. They were not necessarily socializing. Yeah. So that's just something kind of to be aware of when we look at that high risk. So I can sum up this slide by something that we learned as a mental health first aid instructor. So when people say, when they're in our audience and they say, how do I know if I should intervene with my daughter who has depression or my coworker who has anxiety? My pat answer is, if it affects their ability to live, laugh, love, and learn. And that's what I look at with high risk. If it has gone from playing the slots and having fun or hanging out for a couple of hours with friends, if it starts to become money that you are using, you are taking your money for bills, you're taking your student loan payment, and you're going to the casino, if you are borrowing from others, if you're borrowing on credit cards, if you're borrowing on credit, those are all high-risk situations. Also understanding if gambling is used as an escape, we need to understand that unlike other addictions, when you look at gambling, there is an intrinsic element of hope. And you don't usually have that with other addictions. So when you walk into a casino or you're playing that lottery or that scratch off or bingo, there is that element of, hey, maybe I'll win big on this. Maybe I'll get $1,000. Maybe I'll get $10,000. Maybe I'll be able to catch up on my child support payments. You don't have that when you have someone who's going into a crack house and buying their crack. They're not sitting there saying, hey, maybe I can now pay off my student loan. It's very different. So that's something that we need to look at with people with a gambling disorder. They have that escape, you know, that concept of escape. They also have that concept of hope. And while hope in and of itself is great, in a situation like this, it's not, because it could really fall into a negative aspect with a person. So also looking at alcohol and other drugs, anytime you have other substances involved in a behavior addiction, it's going to cause even more problems. Alcohol and tobacco, huge, huge drugs of choice with people with problem gambling disorder, as well as cocaine, amphetamines, different types of things like that. And of course, if anybody is recovering from a mental health or a substance use disorder, the stories are out there about people who have long-term recovery from substance use disorder that just as innocently as Jeanine and I did, just went into a casino and all of a sudden get hooked on gambling. Because what's happening is the same thing that was going on with your brain when you were using those drugs. Same thing is happening when you're playing games or when you're doing any type of gambling. Yeah, Jenny, go ahead.
Is the actor Ben Affleck an example of someone whose perhaps original diagnosis and need to enter treatment was alcohol related, but then he quickly, you know, he had periods of sobriety, but then would hit the news for gambling related issues or scuttlebutt, and then relapse. Like, so is there a strong co-occurring?
Yes, there is a huge correlation with that. And it's interesting because, I mean, now there's a whole lot more research going on with gambling, whereas there wasn't many years ago. But that is one of the things that they're discovering is people in either short-term or long-term sobriety, they innocently will pick up a scratch off, will start playing the lottery, will do different things. And what happens is it reignites all of those feel-good endorphins that they used to experience when they were under the influence. So yeah, great example of that. Any other questions related to this?
I'll touch a little bit more just on Jenny's question and some of the questions in the chat. When we screen our substance use groups at Zeph Center, we identify anywhere from 18 to 20% of clients in substance use treatment would probably meet criteria for a gambling disorder, which is about 1 in 5, which is, I think, pretty high. And I do find that typically they run one of two ways. They either get sober and get bored, and at least gambling is a legal, fun way to do things, or it runs right along with the substance use, and it's primarily active it's either primarily active while we're using or while we're sober. There's two different types of people I run into. And there's a third group of people I run into that say, I had never spend my money on gambling. I want to at least know what I'm paying for. I'd rather buy dope and at least get what I pay for. Still, there's the two types of gamblers that also engage in substances that it either pops up during their sobriety as a fun thing to do in replacement of their use, or it runs in stride with their active drug use, and it might run out of steam as their drug use gets more attention and the money runs out. But 1 in 5, I think, is a pretty high number of clients that could be benefiting from additional support and more opportunities for learning about their addiction and sustaining their sobriety. We do hear those individuals that get sober, and then you don't relapse because you've been sober for 5 months. You relapse because you're not addressing the other issues that need addressed in order to sustain that sobriety, whether that's a gambling problem or a toxic relationship or a crappy job. Those are the things that can kind of get swept under the rug and go unnoticed. And those are the reasons people relapse. Betsy shared in the chat that her and her husband were recently in Vegas and watched people sitting at machines looking like zombies, or they were drinking and reckless in their relationship to the games. That's super common too. You either have the people that want to dissociate and escape, or you've got the people that are in the action and are there in it to win it. They're either escape gamblers or action gamblers. And I think that lines up, Jenny, with what you shared about self-care and video gaming and watching TV. You know, dissociation isn't a bad word. It can be weaponized, and you can do it in an unhealthy way, and you can dissociate as to not deal with your problems and to try and run away from them. But you know, on the same line of that is mindfulness and learning how to just be mindful and present in the moment. And so I think if you're playing video games or watching TV or gambling the way that I do, it's always to dissociate from my life's problems and invest into a Netflix series and to not worry about my issues. And so I think if you're playing video games for that reason, then you might want to do a self-check and say, why am I doing this? Because there's hope with video games too. Hope that you might win, hope that you might get to the next level, hope that you might do better than the people you're playing with. But why? Why are you playing? What is the intention behind your behavior? I think that's what's most important.
And I think to go off what Megan was saying, you know, we noticed Kelly and I kind of organically engaged with a few people at the casino. I mean, we didn't force ourselves on them, but they engaged with us. And the one lady, it just reminded me of all of our basic human needs to want to fit in and feel supported and feel connected. So the one lady was just opening up with us about how she had lost her husband and she was very sad and upset. She started coming to the casino, and then she met all these people, and she knows these people and they know her and they're like a family. And, you know, so we were kind of engaging with her and asking if this has helped her. And she's like, no, not really. Like, you know, it doesn't really make me feel any better. But in her kind of hopelessness, she was just reaching out for something. And then there was another young man that he was probably in his 20s, and we were trying to learn from him. He was playing the roll the dice table game. Help me.
Oh, I can't remember what it was because we were so confused as to how to play it.
Yes. So I was asking him, how do you play this? So he was trying to engage with me and reach out and help teach me, which I never did catch on, but we were kind of engaged back and forth. And he said, yeah, people know me here, right? And he was pointing out some of the people, and he's like, you know me, right? You know who I am. And so he was very much wanting that identity piece of being known and well known. And as I was engaging with him, I ended up giving him one of my mental health moment cards because we were talking, and he's like, I knew you were in mental health. So it was kind of funny. So we had a nice little conversation, but he was talking about like, yeah, he won big one time and he knows he's going to stay until he wins big again. And so, you know, I was kind of talking with him, well, what if you don't win? You're just going to stay here and keep spending. And we started getting a few suspicious eyeballs from the people playing running the game. So we had to end our conversation, but it was just kind of interesting because again, it just reminded me of our basic human needs and how we're trying to fill those often with other things.
Yeah, and if anyone has ever just gone to a casino just to observe, it is a rather depressing sight generally. And there's question when we look at that co-occurrence. You know, we wonder, do people who go to casinos and frequent casinos, are they dealing with their depression? Or does all of their time spent at a casino losing the money, is that a contributing factor to depression? So we kind of go back and forth with that. I'm gonna read a couple of things that I learned at one of my trainings. So among pathological gamblers, alcohol has been found to be the most common substance of abuse. At minimum, the rate of problem gambling among people with substance use disorders is 4 to 5 times that for the general population. So they talk about how alcohol and nicotine are the 2 primary substances that gambling disorder are associated with. So here are some more stats. 7 times co-occurring with gambling, 7 times more likely to abuse substances. 76% of the gambling addiction treatment group suffered from depression. 76. So this is one of the studies from, it's Dr. John Grant. That is an alarming number. And in this actual study, 24% of pathological gamblers had a lifetime prevalence of bipolar disorder. 20% had symptoms for a lifetime prevalence of ADHD. So this training that I'm referencing, they talk about how you wonder, is somebody who's spending 48 hours at the casino, are they in a manic state of bipolar? Are they experiencing ADHD symptoms? What really is going on? So when we look at that co-occurrence, there's so many different aspects to the topic of gambling that you have to be really, really careful. I know Steve and Megan are 2 of the very few gambling counselors in the state of Ohio with that GAM endorsement, meaning that they are equipped to work with people with a gambling disorder. They have that extra training. This is why they have that extra training, because there are so many different dimensions when you work with a client with a gambling disorder. So just different, pieces of information there. Any questions about any of that?
Yep. Kelly,
Yeah,
what was the information about the correlation or the incidence with gambling behavior and ADHD?
So 24% of pathological gamblers had a lifetime prevalence of bipolar disorder, and then 20% had symptoms for a lifetime prevalence of ADHD. And I can get this to you guys too, if you are interested. It was from a training that was done by Ohio for Responsible Gambling. Scott Anderson, who works at OMAS, did a fabulous job with this training and just really shares a lot of his own insight, just from his experiences of being in recovery, and just fascinating statistics. So, any other questions? Okay.
All right, our next thing we wanted to share with you is insights into the world of gaming and gambling. So there's a video playlist on the Zeph Center Prevention YouTube channel. We have the mental health moments, and then we have the insights into the world of gaming and gambling. And this kind of came about right around the time we started doing the mental health moments. Someone from the Sylvania Community Action Team reached out to us and said that parents had been asking about, understanding gaming and gambling and how they go together, and just more information. So we started reaching out to people across the state that are known in prevention and treatment, and did some interviews with them, as well as having Steve's son, who is a gamer himself, explain a little bit about loot boxes and just the different gambling techniques that can be within the gaming world. And then I also reached out and had my husband do one, because he's an esports coach. So esports is a newer thing within schools, if you're unfamiliar, where you can join a team and you play video games as a team against other schools. And they actually are getting presented with college scholarships. So he explained a little bit of some of the benefits of this esports. He gets a lot of, and I've witnessed it, he gets a lot of youth that would be otherwise not engaged in school and activities, after school activities, that feel like they have something they can engage with now, a team they can be a part of. So sometimes I call them a little bit of the misfit group, because when I would do youth-led prevention, I would get some of those misfit youth that didn't really have a place they felt like they fit in, but now they could be a part of something good. So he gets these youth that, like, one was mute. The one boy truly was not speaking in school. They could not get him to engage in school, and he joined the esports team and really came out of his shell and started communicating with other youth and kind of building these bonds. They were presented with some Owens Community Owens Community School scholarships afterwards. So my husband was able to kind of get them thinking about college and after school and you know, getting them in that route where they weren't thinking about before. They were just going to finish high school and be done. So some of the benefits of that he speaks of a little bit in his video. So I'm going to stop share and I'm going to pull up this Insights into the World of Gaming and Gambling. So you'll see there's 8 different videos, actually 9 different videos now, but I'll show you one of them and then you can go back and check out some more if they interest you. So this is the Zeph Center Prevention YouTube channel. And if you go to the playlist, you can see the different playlists. We're starting some sanctuary videos, which this will be a part of as well. Explaining behavioral addictions within the substance use population, which has Steve sharing some insights at the recovery house. So those are very interesting videos for everyone, I think, that could benefit from them. Insights in the World of Gaming and Gambling, and then the mental health moment. So part 2 is actually the one you can see what all of them are. So we have Scott Anderson, which Kelly had mentioned. He shares some insights. Derek Longmire shares some insights.
Dr. Heather Chapman, which is like really, really big in the state of Ohio with gambling treatment. She runs the inpatient gambling treatment residential program at the VA in Cleveland. So it's actually an inpatient residential treatment program for gambling addiction at the VA in Cleveland, Ohio.
Thank you. We have Mike Bazzelli. Then we have my husband talking a little bit about the esports. And then we actually have someone sharing his story about gaming and gambling. He's a veteran in recovery. So that's a really great one to check out as well.
Let's start with the evolution of gaming. What was once a trip to the arcade, where you played for a limited amount of time, not to mention quarters, to what became a home gaming device, to a handheld game, to what has now become an online gaming community, with after-school gaming clubs that have the potential of youth earning college scholarships to play. Now we're going to hear from a young adult who's been gaming for many years, and he's going to share some insights into the gaming world and some things parents need to be aware of to protect their children from potential dangers.
Hello, my name is Andrew Capella. I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember, and I was asked by my dad to help him with his presentation about gambling in video games. After answering some of his questions, he decided that this wasn't something he could do by himself. So he asked if I wanted to help him present at the Ohio Problem Gambling Conference that took place this past March. After we rocked the presentation and allegedly were the talk of the conference, I was asked by Zeph Center to help the Sylvania Community Action Team and the Sylvania Parents Organization to create a video talking about video games. I wanted to mainly talk about competitive video games and some of the systems that are commonly found in them. So, competitive video games are very similar to traditional sports in that it is a competition between 2 teams of varying size with the goal to beat the other team. The types of competitive video games I want to talk about are games like tactical shooters, battle royales, and multiplayer online battle arenas, also called MOBAs. These 3 genres have a lot of similarities and differences, but the 3 similarities I want to talk about today are microtransactions, loot boxes, and skins. Microtransactions are very common in gaming today. Almost all games now seem to have some form of microtransaction. But first, what is a microtransaction? A microtransaction is a business model used in games where players can purchase virtual goods via small one-time purchases in the gaming console store. These microtransactions normally are used to buy things like premium currency. So for example, Fortnite V-Bucks, Ultimate Team coins in sports games, and in Clash of Clans, it would be gems. These kinds of payments can be made very easily by your kid, and you should be aware of that. Okay, so I hopped in game here just to show how easy it can be to make a microtransaction. So let's say I wanted to open up this case. And so as you can see here, it costs $2.50. If I click on it, I have to add funds. So just add funds and then add $5. And then from here, I can choose my payment method. Let's say my parent used their PayPal account. So all I have to do is continue. I agree. purchase. And it's that easy to spend money. Loot boxes are a form of gambling, which take many different forms. These loot boxes can be in actual boxes in-game, or sometimes less expected, like card packs in a sports game. Loot boxes give items to the player with a random chance of the item being valuable. In most games, you must use premium currency or a microtransaction to purchase loot boxes. Some games will give you a loot box when you reach the next level to try and incentivize players to keep playing and to purchase more loot boxes. In games with loot boxes and microtransactions, the items received are given a value determined by the community. This value might be shown to a player or it can be hidden, but all items have a value. In all cases, you ideally want the most expensive thing to come from that loot box. It's similar to trying to hit the jackpot on a slot machine. These items can range in value from being worthless to being worth over hundreds or thousands of dollars. Let me show you some examples of these items being worth a lot of money. So as you can see on eBay, which is where I'm at right now, as you can see, a lot of these Fortnite skins, for example, can range from anywhere from $100. This one's going for $550. For games like League of Legends, which is a MOBA, this skin in particular, it's called Championship Ribbon, goes for $250. This account is going for $3,000. All of the prices are determined by the owners themselves. And for games like Counter-Strike, this is the community market, which I'll mention a little bit later. These are all skins that can be sold and bought. As you can see, they're all worth over $660. As you can see, all the items that are worth money are rare skins or rare items, which leads me into the next topic, skins. While they're usually only cosmetic, they end up being one of the most controversial parts of the whole competitive video gaming scene. Many skins have rarity, and that ties into how often you see that skin. The rarer the skin, the more it's worth. So in games like Counter-Strike, skins can be worth from anything from 3 cents to $27,000. These skins can be sold on the Steam community market, and that money can be used to buy other things on the community market, like games, more loot boxes, or different skins. This system is unique to Counter-Strike because it is on Steam. But as I mentioned earlier, all items from loot boxes have a value. In League of Legends, if your account has a certain skin or a lot of skins, you can sell your account for hundreds or thousands of dollars on eBay. Same thing in Fortnite or really any competitive video game that doesn't have a trading system. A problem that Counter-Strike is dealing with is that their skins are being used in gambling. This is because you can trade the skins and that they have a value. Many websites will take those skins as a form of payment and give you some credit for their site. So this is CSGO Fast. This is a CSGO betting website and gambling site. As you can see up here, they accept currency from Steam. So this would be your Counter-Strike skins. They also accept things like MasterCard, Visas, Bitcoin, and all of these other forms of payment methods. But as you can see here in this game called Double, it is literally a roulette wheel, and all of these people, here they are, they're all putting in bets for it. And then if we go over to high-low, we have people, all these people are betting on if the next card is going to be high or if it's going to be low or if it's going to be red or black or whatever. And then we also have here, this is esports betting. So these are all semi-professional, professional teams. And as you can see, you're able to bet on what team you think is going to win. And those teams have odds. And yeah, it's very similar to that of traditional sports betting. But the most important thing is, as a parent, you should be informed and be aware of the dangers that come from these kinds of things. Make sure you talk to your kids and be aware of what they're doing when they play these games. Just because they play for long sessions, it doesn't mean that they are doing things like gambling. Games are meant to be fun time sinks, and just because there are systems like like loot boxes and microtransactions, you shouldn't overreact and try to remove these things from your home. It's important to know what your kids are doing and to try and educate them about these dangers.
Okay. Comments, thoughts?
Right. This is so informative. There's so much I'm going to need to learn about for those of you that know Lincoln, right? Right now it's skins for, I don't know, like Minecraft kind of stuff, right? But he started to wear the thing where he can communicate with people and play. I could see that this could be a realm where he could socialize, fit in, and really excel. And also being really vulnerable. So the part about the skins, that was really helpful, because like we even have on Sunday, we have to wake up. He would like to wake up early, and he's trying to do all these extra chores around the house to have enough chore points to put the money in his account, because there's going to be a skin available on Sunday. And so I don't know if those are the same kind of skins that, I mean, on a certain level, what Andrew was talking about, but this is definitely helpful information.
Yeah. Well, good.
I appreciate it.
Well, and we were kind of, the more we learn about it as well, I think as like Kelly and I as prevention specialists, the more eye-opening it is for us, because even when you look at like peer pressure among young people, they were saying like they're getting pressured within the gaming community to then, hey, will you buy me a skin because I'm your friend and I don't have the money, and they feel pressured to do that. And then, also just the fact that they can sometimes buy these things without parents knowing if their accounts are already loaded in. A lot of times parents don't even notice the transactions being made. So it's an interesting environment for sure.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many parents admit that they do not look at their credit card or PayPal or Apple Pay or any of that. They don't look at the statements. They get it and they pay it. And it might be a conversation like, wow, I didn't know I spent that much, but okay, let's pay it off. So this is happening literally under their nose, and they have no idea how involved their kids or grandkids are in things like this. And understanding those loot boxes, that is a form of gambling. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I learned, I had to write it down because I'm not a gamer and I never heard of this, but NBA Y2K, I guess, is a new game for 18 and above. And they actually have a casino that is within that game where the kids can bet on blackjack, roulette, slot machines. So when I heard that, I was appalled, because I'm like, what do you mean 8 and over can now buy this game and start gambling? What is that doing to that young person's brain, that we all know that prefrontal cortex is not fully developed at that age? What is going on with that young person's brain? They want more and more and bigger and better. What are you creating right there? A person with a problem gambling disorder.
And in one of our trainings, they talked about that. I mean, how we can't necessarily escape it per se. I mean, it's a part of young people's lives. Young people do enjoy playing games, but how we can teach them and kind of as parents or adults in their lives, role model the idea that you have to have high endorphin and low endorphin activities and find that balance. So limit the time that they can spend on the high endorphin activities and explain that to them, that these are high endorphin activities that make you feel good and all of that. But we have to balance that with riding your bike, going for walks outside, all the low endorphin activities, so that our brains can have that balance and find balance. Otherwise, if you are exposed to the high endorphin activities for longer periods of time, it's that dopamine release that, we see them getting angry and crabby when you start taking it away from them because they want that. So kind of helping to explain to them and balancing that life lesson, I feel like, that we need for the rest of our lives to really balance the high endorphin and low endorphin activities.
I did want to address, I know when I present, I cannot multitask and look at the chat. So I was looking at it now. And Jenny, you asked about domestic violence in the home. And I have some pretty staggering statistics that I'd be happy to share with you guys. So the same training that Scott did, intimate partner violence, a study of 300 women. Sorry, I'm giving the wrong information. Okay, so in a study of 300 women with consecutive ER visits, and this was from 2002, 26% were categorized as experiencing intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence, 10 times as likely if the partner was a problem gambler, 10 times more likely. Intimate partner violence, 6 times as likely if a partner was a problem drinker, and intimate partner violence, 50 times as likely if a partner was both. So thinking about that, one of the things that Scott shared as an example, he said somebody who may not know a lot about problem gambling, maybe a therapist who says to the problem gambler's spouse, just stop the credit cards, stop any type of access from your spouse. So what happens if that particular person then has a bad day, goes to the casino to relieve stress, so to speak, and finds that he or she can no longer access, their debit card, that they've been blocked from this? What's going to happen? That person may likely go home, and that dating and domestic violence, that intimate partner violence may increase. So this is where, people like Steve and Megan, who have that experience and have that endorsement, that gambling endorsement, they would know that you have to be really, really careful with suggesting things like this, because there's so much interrelating with things like that. So I wanted to address that before I forgot. So yeah, you're definitely talking about increased dating and domestic violence with this.
These figures are similar to in child welfare. Exponentially, the risk of safety goes up for children in the home around times like the Super Bowl, for example.
Sure.
That's when we would get the most calls in child welfare, depending on which team won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Okay, so gambling disorder in the DSM-5. So this is for those clinicians out there. We are going to breeze through this because this is all information that you can read over on your own time. But I want you to remember that just because someone gambles does not mean they have a gambling problem. And just because someone plays video games does not mean they have a problem with that either. We have to stay curious with our clients. And just because someone says they like to buy scratch-off tickets does not mean they have a problem, but would warrant further questions. Oh, how often do you gamble? Stay curious, right? Just like depression, we've all experienced feeling depressed, right? But not everyone meets criteria for a DSM-5 diagnosis of depression. And many people have gambled, but that doesn't mean they would meet criteria for a gambling disorder either. So a few things to note here are that before the DSM-5, gambling disorder was actually characterized in the impulse control disorder section, along with pyromania, trichotillomania, I don't have to say that often, and kleptomania. And so basically it was, oh, you have an impulse control disorder. You just need to learn how to control yourself. And if you work in the field of substance use, that sounds very similar to early theories of addiction, where it was of moral defect, or you just needed to learn how to be a better person and choose differently. So a little bit of controversy with that. A lot of research was started to say, well, maybe it's not an impulse control disorder. Let's look at the brain. Let's see what happens to the brain when someone is gambling. And there's research after research after research done to show that brain imaging studies and neurochemical tests made a strong case that gambling activates the reward system in similar ways that drugs do. There's a 2-minute YouTube video showing that a brain on cocaine looks the same as a brain on gambling. The same parts of the brain light up. And so if you want to go to the next slide, the DSM-5 now characterizes it in the substance use disorders as the only behavioral addiction, meaning it is not ingested in any way into the bloodstream. It is a behavior that is categorized into the addiction disorders in the DSM-5. So when we're looking at a possible diagnosis for gambling disorder, we want to rule out if it's not better explained by a manic episode, if the client has a bipolar diagnosis and they're only experiencing gambling symptoms while they're manic or while they're depressed, you'd want to rule that out. And when we look at the criteria here, there's 9 criteria and you only need to meet 4. Or actually not only, that's actually a lot to meet. You have to meet 4 out of the 9 as opposed to a substance use disorder where you have to meet 2 out of 12. You're really having to meet this criteria to have a gambling disorder. It has to be pretty significant. So going on to the criteria, these are, yep, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so going to the criteria, there's 9. I'll let you read over these on your own time. I bolded what I felt was most important. Are you needing to gamble with more money or more days during the week? Is your tolerance increasing? Are you wanting to spend more money or spend more time in the activity? How do you feel when you're not doing that activity? And what are you thinking about when you're not gambling? Or are you thinking about gambling often? Have you ever tried to stop and were you unsuccessful? We see this a lot with clients sharing, yeah, of course I've tried to bring $50 to the casino and leave when that was gone. But I haven't always been successful. Sometimes I'll go back to the ATM and get more money out. Or sometimes I'll just say, I'm just going to go 1 day a week, but I end up going 2 or 3 times that week instead.
Is there an ATM in casinos?
In many of them, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's as easy as going up to the ATM machine and putting your debit card in and getting as much money as you want. Some casinos even have like lines of credit where you can just go up and essentially kind of get like a cash advance and just play with a line of credit.
So the casinos that we went to, they were everywhere. It wasn't just at one end or the other. The Hard Rock Casino in Cincinnati was very large and they had several ATMs. And here is a fun fact. There are 20,000 slot machines in Ohio, twice as many as ATMs. So there's just kind of a fun fact for you. When I heard that, I was like, wait, what? What is that saying?
So it really is easy to continue your habit even when you are out of your own money. I'm pretty sure you can play at the gas pump now. You can play on credit cards while you're pumping your gas. I mean, it's really easy to do. And it's, for the most part, societally accepted. I was listening to a guided meditation on my way to work one day that was sponsored by DraftKings, which is a sports betting company. I was listening to a guided meditation sponsored by DraftKings, which I felt was just incredibly wrong. So criteria, why are you gambling? Are you gambling because you're in a good mood, because you're in a bad mood? Are you in any type of mood gambler? Are you returning the next day to get even? A lot of problem gamblers keep a running tab in their head of what the casino owes them back or what the scratch-off tickets owe them back. And they say, well, I need to go back and spend this much money to win back what I lost, to be breaking even or in the green again. Lying is a very specific criteria to gambling disorder. It is so easy to hide a gambling addiction because you can't see it, smell it on me. None of you would know if I spent all night at the casino last night. Yeah, I might look a little tired, look a little stressed, but I'll just tell you it's because I'm getting married on Saturday. I can hide my gambling addiction so easily. And so lying is a very specific criteria to this disorder. losing more than money? Have you lost a relationship, a job, a career opportunity, time with your family? How much time are you spending at the casino? I know clients that have missed Christmas to be at the casino because they have to win back what they've lost. It's no longer about having fun, just like with drugs and alcohol. By the time you meet a client for treatment for substance use, they're not drinking because it's fun anymore. They're drinking because they don't want to get sick, because they want to feel somewhat normal. It's the same thing for our gamblers. They're not gambling because it's fun anymore. They're gambling because they're going to lose their house if they don't come up with $2 grand really quick. And they don't want that bubble to pop, because if that bubble pops, everyone finds out that they're losing the house, they're losing the car, the kids have to go be taken out of private school. We don't have the money anymore. So you're losing a lot more than money. And oftentimes there's this component of relying on financial bailouts, whether that's taking cash advances, whether that's asking friends and family for money to fix the 5th tire on your Saturn Ion for the 4th time that month, whether it's coming up up front and saying, look, I have a gambling problem, and friends and family doing what any friend and family member would want to do. Okay, let's pay this off. Let's get you in the green. Let's get you better, which is essentially an enabling behavior, right? Bringing them up to the clean slate for them to start all over again. Yeah, I feel stressed as well, Kristen. It's a sad thing to hear. Desperation, absolutely. Because
I can feel myself like, like that's horrible to think about the decisions that people are having to make, and just trying to always catch up with themselves and avoid all of these like losses. And
and no one can know about it. You're essentially living a secret life that no one can know about.
Yeah.
Well, and something fascinating too is how quickly you can lose or win money. Jeanine and I experienced that just in our environmental scans at the casino. And at one point, I think I put in $5 and I didn't know how to play the game. And I was like pressing something, and then that was it. Literally 30 seconds, I lost $5. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? But you can go around and you can see, if you look in the certain section, you can see how much people are winning. And it was fascinating because in doing this scan, I was just kind of keeping a distance, watching some of the people. And the one person was up like $300 and then within 5 minutes lost everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so much money. And again, that's your difference between your substance addiction versus the behavior base. I mean, just instantly, you could win $10,000 and you can lose $25,000. It's just a fascinating thing and a scary thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, and Betsy, you work in crisis care, and I never meet a client not in crisis for the first time, because by the time they make it to Steve's office or my office, it is crisis. It's, my family just found out that we're 30 grand in debt and they had no idea. It's, my family just found out I lost my job because I was stealing from work. It's always like, you hit rock bottom. You don't slide down, you fall, and you fall fast. And what's that statistic correlated with suicide? You guys help me out.
It's people with a problem gambling disorder are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide.
And their spouse, I believe, is 7 times more likely.
Yes. Yep.
Because if you really think about it, I could bet my whole life savings on one bet if I really wanted to. No one would stop me, because 1, I wouldn't tell anybody, and 2, the casino would welcome it. Mm-hmm. No one's going to stop me. I can literally lose it all in one bet if I want to. You can only drink so much until you pass out.
Well, and let's also note that there are places, it started in Las Vegas. There are some of the casinos employ people that their only job is to go around and monitor people, their reaction and their action, as well as going to the parking garages or the parking lots and making sure there are no children left in vehicles and there are no pets left in vehicles. They're also monitoring to make sure that somebody is not going to be attempting suicide. With one of the casinos that happened in Michigan a few years ago, when the person jumped off of the parking garage and died by suicide. So these are realities, and this is bad enough that casinos are noting this and are employing people to do that as a full-time job, to look around and see the desperation and intervene as necessary. That's very significant.
We were told they don't have to report a suicide because it's bad business. So
Correct.
It reported, even though it does happen like right in our backyard here at the Rossford Casino.
There is some clause that states it is not public knowledge, like it does not have to be a public record as other crimes or other situations do, because there's something in a clause with the casinos, which I just find sad. I was dumbfounded to hear that. Yeah.
Have you guys, I don't want to like be tangential, but that movie, this reminded me of that movie Uncut Gems.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen, I mean, and that's a really, I think, like, in whatever somebody might feel about it, but it's Adam Sandler is like a compulsive gambler, and the pace of the movie, I think, like, it's really difficult to watch. It's really overstimulating, and it reminds me of like what that, I don't know, I feel like it's so visceral. That might be like what it really feels like to deal with that problem. And
Kristen, I have heard from different people in this field. Some people cannot watch it. Some people in recovery from a gambling disorder cannot watch it. Other people can't watch it just because of what you said, the fast paced. But I've also heard that it's extremely accurate. So I have not seen it, and I'm kind of curious to see it because of all of that. So.
Okay.
We can keep moving on. I know that I want to be mindful of time. Anything, we can kind of zoom through these. These are things you can read on your own. I am more than willing to expand on this with anybody that wants to learn more, but these are just slides on the connection and correlation between gambling disorder and substance use, and how some of the symptoms are the same, they're just worded differently. So that's something you can read on your own time. And gambling disorder versus substance use disorder is a great group to do if you work with clients in substance use, is asking them what are the similarities and differences, and seeing what they come up with. Because where they're different, but where they're the same, they're identical. And let's keep going so that we can cover the rest of the more important slides.
So I'm going to jump in on this, identifying the problem. It's kind of like the red sports car syndrome. Once you learn about something like this, you see it everywhere. So like Megan mentioned about gas, when I'm pumping gas, I'm seeing lottery tickets, I'm seeing, all these types of advertisements. So it's important, whether you're a clinician, whether you're a case manager, to have that awareness piece, to ask those questions. I know when I did tobacco cessation programming there at ZEF, I was appalled and shocked by the number of clients that were not diagnosed with a nicotine dependence disorder or any type of disorder like that. Once you become aware of it, you then know what types of questions to ask. So if you have a client that says, sorry, I was late for my appointment, I was getting my daily lottery ticket, instead of just laughing and saying, well, good luck, you might want to say, how much do you spend? You do this every day. How much? And just asking those key types of questions, looking at some of these brief screens and asking these questions. It's just a matter of being aware. So yeah, go ahead, Megan.
I think considering, each client is unique. And so you might hear your client say, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm late. I had to get my daily, play my daily numbers. And you might think, oh, that's harmless. You might even play the numbers, right? But stay curious, because I'll work with clients that I meet on the detox unit for substance use. They'll enter into recovery housing, and they'll buy scratch off tickets. And I'll ask them, you know, about how much do you think you spend on a week in scratch off tickets? And they might say $10. And we might think, let's just stop the conversation there. It's $10, it's not that big of a deal. Ask them how much money they have to their name while they're in recovery, living at a recovery house. And they'll say, oh, I have $40. Okay, so you spent 10 of your $40 on gambling. Where's the red flag there, right? So consider the client's circumstances, stay curious. We also have clients that have full-blown careers and make a good amount of money. And so $10 to them is insignificant. They're playing with big money. You know, they don't go to the casino unless they're spending $500 to $1,000. But their logic is they can afford to do it. They make good money. So always consider the client's circumstances and instead of the dollar amount. These are just brief screens that anybody can ask. This is like when you ask someone, have you ever thought about harming yourself or someone else? That's the first question you ask to determine if you need to continue asking questions. These brief screens are the same thing. These questions are great questions to ask if they bring up that they like to gamble. Pick one and ask. Usually the brief screen has 3 questions, 2 or 3 questions. If they say yes to one of them, you might want to investigate more. Anybody can ask these questions to determine if further assessment is needed. Good to have in your back pocket. Yeah, let's finish up with the stats and prevalence because I know we've only got a few minutes left.
Sounds good.
So when we think about this, it's like typical statistics. It can be interpreted in any number of ways. So 1% of US adults are estimated to meet the criteria for problem gambling in a given year. And you're thinking, okay, 1%, not a big deal, but let's translate that into 2 million people. That's staggering. 2 to 3% of Americans meet the criteria for gambling addiction. That translates to 4 to 6 million. This is the other thing. Even if you are not somebody with a problem gambling disorder, you may be a family member, you may be the employer that the person has embezzled from. So understanding it's not just a single person's problem, it usually is pretty significant. So again, there's our statistic about suicide, and understanding that we're not saying gambling is bad. We are bringing awareness to people to let you know what this looks like. I mean, Jenny, you mentioned about, you know, with your son and gaming. So it's an awareness piece, all of that. So the 2 states without legalized gambling, anybody know those? Utah? Yes, Utah and Hawaii. Very good. So I know the rest of this is pretty self-explanatory, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you finish up with this, I'm going to scroll through the rest of the slides so that you see what's available when we'll give you the PowerPoint, and you'll be able to go back if you want to look back at anything. So. Perfect.
Yeah, because like I said, we put a lot of information here knowing we wouldn't be able to cover it all, but at least you have access to it and you'll have our information. Also, fun fact that I learned, all but one of the casinos in Ohio now have smoking sections, and now they have put the slot machines and some bars and some concert type stages in some of these areas. Jeanine and I experienced that at the larger one there in Hard Rock Cafe in Cincinnati. So they were, what people were finding in the gambling industry is people who left to go smoke would be upset because they would lose their spot or they would lose their seat. So what they did is they catered to the smokers and they created the smoking rooms and created their own slot machines and all kinds of other things. The only casino that doesn't have it is in Cleveland, and it's just because architecturally, it was an old department store and they couldn't figure out how to bring the, like how to have smoking rooms, but all the other casinos have that. So again, smoking and alcohol use hand in hand. Also, when you go to the casinos, all you have to do is press a button and you could have a server come and deliver alcohol to you at any time. So something else we learned, right, Jeanine?
But our message of hope, we'll leave you with our message of hope. That awareness piece of, you know, once we know and we're aware of it, then we can start kind of having our eyes open and kind of regulating it. And, you know, like we said, those high and low endorphin activities, we can start kind of, you know, catching ourselves and helping other people kind of walk through some of this and be aware of that. So we want to leave you with that message of hope, and we left you with also pictures of our sweet dogs. Something to smile about at the end.
So you guys, thank you so much for your time and attention and questions. We really appreciate it. And Jenny, we will send you the slides and you can send those out to everybody. And we are your contact people and your resources, whatever you guys need. If we don't have the answer, we will figure it out. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was great. Really informative.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.